and we're back with Benivo Bites, another fascinating, thrilling edition of all that is latest in global mobility technology. Benivo Bites is the world's first live tech show aimed specifically at the mobility industry. And I'm delighted that as a guest, once again, I've got with me the CEO of Benivo, Nitsan Udan. And today we're talking big data. So it's a really, really exciting thing. We actually had a show yesterday. As many of you know, we also produce a show called The View from the Top, where we introduce many of the thought leaders and industry practitioners from around the world. And yesterday I was delighted that I had on the show the Silicon Valley legend that is Wes Okamura. And we were talking about big data, and obviously coming from Silicon Valley, that is something that is very dear to his heart and the heart of everybody out in the Valley. And one of the points that was made during the conversation was that where is mobility at the moment? And the answer was, we're probably a 3 out of 10. So what we want to do today is to talk about what we can do to make mobility much better than a 3 out of 10, a 7, an 8, a 9, heaven forbid, even shoot for a 10 out of 10. And I'm seeing loads of people are coming in. It's great to see you from all over the world coming in. I'm seeing people coming in from France, from Mississippi, from India, from Rome, from Phoenix, from Boston, from Michigan, from New Delhi. People are coming in all over the world. So please, everybody, as you come in, do join the conversation. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you're coming from. We really love to know who is out there so we can share, and as we go through, ask questions, and we'll try and answer your questions live as we go through and we talk about big data. I appreciate that some of you probably don't know who or what Benivo is. So let me just tell you a little bit about that before we get into it. Benivo is the world's leading welcome as a service mobility tech company. Benivo comes from the word welcome in, I think it's 8 different European languages, bienvenue, bienvenito, bienvenuto, etc., etc., etc. It comes from that word welcome. But really, if you cut us open, the tech platform really delivers on 3 levels. The first is it provides what we call digital destinations. And there we like to provide an Amazon-style user experience so that people can use technology in the same way that they use Amazon. We also provide an end-to-end mobility experience. So you as a mobility manager can see all the data you want in one place. And that's what we're going to be really driving into today. We're really going to be driving into how you can use that data to understand what you're doing and to look at what you can do. And then the third thing that we do at the Benivo platform is we provide the world's first fintech solution. So we can actually provide a payment solution. And I think as a seasoned mobility professional, as I'm sure all of you know all too well, actually getting the cash to the assignees, to the people on assignment on time and quickly is so difficult to do. And here we have a fintech solution that can do that within minutes and certainly not within days. We've covered a number of these issues on previous versions of previous episodes of Benivo Bites. We've covered the Amazon-style user experience. We've covered fintech. We've covered a partnership platform that we have. We've covered how we integrate with RMCs. And if you want to see all those, simply go onto our website and you can see the previous recordings. But today we're going to talk big data. And there's one real question that I think everybody wants to understand is, how can we make big data more strategic? How can it actually help mobility? And so what I'll do at this point is let me bring in our CEO, Nitsan Udan, and we'll get into the debate. So Nitsan. Hey, how are you doing, Nitsan?
Hey, Ryan, and hi, everyone. Good to be here.
Cool. And we've got people all over the world coming in. I gave a big shout out to many before, but I'm seeing people from the Netherlands, from the UK, from California, from New Jersey, from Armenia, from London, from Green Bay, from North Carolina, from New York City. So we've got people coming in from all over the world, which is wonderful. So I'm not going to sort of talk anymore because I want to hand over to you, Nitsan. I'm sure the audience are dying to know. And let's just start off with this big question, and I know we'll dive into it in a lot more. But how can big data make mobility more strategic? And maybe even a question that I can throw in there at some point, and I'm going to get you to come onto it, is what is big data? But before we do, I just want to ask the audience a question too, because I can see we've got, well, actually looking at our various social media sources, we've got nearly 100 people online at the moment, which is just wonderful. So let me just start by asking the audience a question, and maybe you can feed in the comments whilst Nick then is talking, which is, we've talked about data, and everybody knows, everybody collects data. But my question to you in the audience is this: how do you use data at the moment? If you want to call it small data as opposed to big data. Actually, maybe we should be calling it smart data, not big data. But how do you use the data at the moment? But secondly, in your ideal world, how would you like to be able to use that data? So you feed in on LinkedIn your thoughts about what you're doing at the moment with data and what you'd like to do. And then hopefully as we go through, we'll start answering some of the questions and showing you how we can actually help you achieve your dreams of how you can use data. But anyway, Nitsan, let's get back to you. How can big data make mobility more strategic?
Yeah, the big topic of the day. So let's start with just getting a few definitions in place. So let's talk about what is actually big data, because there are different definitions of the term, and just to put us all on the same page for this conversation. Big data does not actually talk about a lot of data points. It's not about that. It's how we use the data, how we make data helpful, how we use it for predictive analytics to be able to forecast the future, how we use it for user behavior analytics or other advanced data analytics or people analytics. How can we make data impact our decision making and our ability to make better decisions? That's what big data is all about. It's more relevant today than ever before because everything becomes more digital. So there is access to much more data than we had before. Everything is happening electronically. And what's beautiful about that is that it's being tracked, meaning that it's possible to find out and uncover insights and knowledge that was certainly not available before on the analog world of just talking on the phone or meeting in person, because there was no recording of what happens. But every click today we make is being tracked and can be used in order to drive insights. And that's what the definition of big data, and that's what it becomes so popular now.
And can you give us some specific examples that we might just see in our ordinary everyday life of how companies are using big data in the world, not necessarily in mobility, but just in the general world, how companies using big data?
Yeah, let's take one company like Walmart, right, who managed to really take over the retail market at a relatively short time. And how did they do that? A lot of that was by using data. One of the unique things that Walmart did is that they've assigned any product into a data point. So everything that was being sold was recorded for the first time in a central data point that allowed not only Walmart to make better decisions about what to stock and what inventory and what customers want, but they actually shared it with the suppliers. So the suppliers knew already when they will need to bring what where, and how to manage inventories level efficiently. So that completely transformed this industry and is in the back of how Walmart has managed to go so big on the basis of data. That's created them a strategic advantage of being able to give lower prices and higher variety. Looking here back in the UK, Rolls-Royce, right, producing engines, they've started to put sensors in engines in order to predict when an engine might need refurbishment or might need some maintenance work. And by doing that, they were able to completely transform their business into a services business, selling service of maintaining, which now generates 70% of their revenues. So really, big data transformed industries. It's not just a nice to have. It's something that if you are not going to have, your competitors are going to have, and you're just going to beat us.
Okay, and companies like Netflix and Amazon must be using big data all the time.
Exactly. These are the examples we see day to day, right? All those recommendations. How does Amazon know what I want to buy alongside this product that I've just put here? Or how do they just analyze, right, what other users behave like me, and based on that, they put algorithms that can predict what I'm likely to buy as well. Amazon is so advanced in using data that when you look at a product, they know even before you've made a decision whether you're going to buy it or not, if you're going to buy it or not, and they start shipping it toward you, getting it to a warehouse that is closer to you, even before you click the buy button. That's how some of the advanced ways that Amazon is remarkably using data.
Well, that's scary. So Amazon knows better than I do what I want. It just sounds like it's your mum. You know, they just say, you know, they know what you want. They know what you want. You know, this is what you want. You know, and this is the world we're moving. And but I mean, all joking aside, this is what Amazon is doing. This is what Netflix is doing, and this is what is reshaping up the world. And obviously, the question I think we're going to come on to is, okay, well, that's big data, but what about big data in our world? And let me just pick up some of the comments from the audience, because we're getting some comments coming in here. So this is from Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. She says, one way is we use dashboards to read data to understand how we are measuring against our KPIs. And actually, I think we're going to be going into that, aren't we, to show. And from Paul Seymour here, we use it in sales and in client consulting, like with benchmarking. And another comment coming in here from Giovanni De Carlo. He says, big or smart data should help to make decisions and help us in adjusting the way we do business. I think those are all great points. So I suppose really the question that we're all asking, I know you're going to help us with, Nitzan, is it's time to bring big data to mobility. We've talked about it. We've talked about the theory. Come on, put us out of our misery. Tell us how we're going to do it.
Let's jump into it. I mean, the first places, right, where you see it, even on the wider picture in HR, that big data is doing, is that there are companies who are able to predict an employee that is about to resign even before they've gave that notice, right, and notify their manager in real time. And the same concept actually comes into mobility. So we're going to look today on a framework that will help us analyze a little bit how can big data impact mobility. And that framework of big data is quite simple. It's going to look at the past, what happened before. It's going to look at the present, what can I actually do now, and on the future, what is coming next.
Let's get into that framework. Let me just leave a question out there for the audience as well, whilst you're going through the framework. And this was actually a poll that we did a couple of days ago, and we talked about it on the show we did yesterday, but I'll just leave it out there again. And we're going to talk about what big data, and you're going to, as you hear Nitzan explain the framework, the question I want you to think about, and I'll leave the answers up here for you to think about, is how do you think big data and predictive analytics is most going to transform your job, is most going to transform global mobility? And in the poll, we gave you 4 choices. We said, do you think it's going to most transform by enhancing employee experience? Do you think it's going to do it by reducing cost? Do you think it's going to do it by process efficiencies? Or do you think it's going to do it by managing vendor performance? So keep those in mind. We'll keep that on. We'll keep those sort of answers on screen whilst, and so you can think about it as we go through. But what I think Nitzan is now going to do for the next few moments is going to talk about the framework of how we think big data can help and predictive analytics can help. So Nitzan, why don't you do that, and then we'll pick up some of the answers to the poll as well.
Yep. So the key here is to find how we utilize data, not just how we measure and collect data, because often it ends up there. It ends up, okay, we have a dashboard, we have a KPI, we have some, but how does that impact? What are we going to do in our day-to-day? That's what we're going to try to focus on today. How data can help us make better decisions and change and improve our mobility. And we're going to look at, as I said, there's the past. So things that happened in the past, how can I learn from them to make better decisions? Present, what is currently happening, and I can still action to actually impact the future, change it. So it's not too late to change it, it's still happening. And the future, how can I predict what's going to happen next? And we're going to cover a number of areas, and we're going to look at some data, of course, and see how this framework help us at different stages make better decisions. So let's start with an example, or maybe clarifying that a little bit here, what's in the past, right? So when I talk about...
That would be helpful. What would you say, because conceptually the past, present and future is all very well, but I want to get down into the detail. I'm sure the audience does. So what do you mean? Give me specific examples of what you mean, of examples where you can use big data for the past, the present and the future. Let's start with the past.
Yeah, let's start with an example. Let's say about we want to better understand the immigration process, right? So let's go into our immigration process. We are measuring the performance there, and let's look at the past, present, and the future. So when we look at the past, we normally talked about reports and analytics. So what kind of reports can we look at what happened with our immigration in the past? We can look at, for example, vendor performance. We can see what was the SLA performance. We can make better decisions based on that, on who are going to be our vendors going forward, but we can't change it. That's why I'm calling it the past, right? We can use that information, but not influence that. So one thing is vendor performance in my immigration, how long it took them to get us a visa. Second thing we can look is a combination of countries, right? So why actually getting visas to the Netherlands take us much longer than doing it to the US? Is there something in our process that we can improve in order to get people faster to the host country?
So basically, when we say the past, what we're doing is we're learning from the mistakes of the past, and it's a learning exercise. It's not predicting the future. It's telling us what happened in the past, and then we can use our own intelligence to say, okay, that was the problem in the past. Let's do something about it. So it might be to use those examples to make your immigration process smoother, or it might be said to change your vendor, or to have a word with your vendor if that particular vendor is underperforming in some way.
Or help your vendor perform better. Because you have the data, right? We want to work together.
Yeah. Interestingly, the polling results that we got, I'll just share them here, is when we actually polled, it was only 8% who thought monitoring vendor performance was something that could be transformed by big data. But what we're saying actually, and it's a bit of a trick question, because we think all these areas will be, not just can, but will be transformed by big data. And vendor performance, although it came in last, is very much something that can be, as indeed was the second one you said, enhancing the process efficiencies. And there you got the example of immigration to the US or to the Netherlands, and making the process more efficient. Okay, so that was the past. I mean, should we try and move then in time and look at the future? The present. How can big data help us in the moment?
So let's take the same example of the immigration process, and let's look at the present. What we want to know at the present is performance, for example, on SLA. Let's say that on the immigration process, there are 6 steps that every employee needs to go through. And we can identify that employee X, not on average, but employee specific that we know is now stuck in stage 3 for longer than the SLA, then longer than we expected. We can actually change the future. We can make an action. We need a system that will notify us, right? Because we can't go through everyone all the time, but a system can analyze the data and very easily tell us, now take an action with this employee because you can make sure they will arrive faster. And then by that, we are identifying problems often even before the employee or the vendor are aware of them. And we can be much more proactive and talking about being more strategic in delivering on the results that will deliver a better mobility experience. So that's what we call the present, real-time insights, alerts that we can action on them. And I'll show a few examples that we have on Benivo in a couple of minutes. Let's continue to the future. And what we're talking about the future is predictive analytics. What is predictive analytics? Is being able to forecast with a high level of accuracy what will something happen. So back into the immigration example, what will be a predictive analytic example? Let's say the business asks me, I have 2 employees, I need to get an engineer urgently to Canada. I have one employee who is Austrian and the second is Indian. Which one is likely to get a visa faster? And we can use predictive analytics, look at data of the past, look at their profile, and put that into an algorithm that will tell us these are the number of days that each application will take. And based on that, help the business make the better decision that might help them either win a client, win a project, and really forecast the future. So these are the three, yeah.
Yeah, and you're talking about the future, but I mean, this is getting into the Amazon, Netflix area where, you know, it knows better than you do or faster than you do that, you know, actually you might like this program. And I can see that coming in. And some of the other areas, you've talked about immigration, but also assignment success and indeed assignment failure. You know, it may well be able to say, for example, that if you're sending a married couple on assignment, you've got a better chance of assignment success if they've got a three-bedroom apartment rather than a two-bedroom, or two-bedroom rather than a one-bedroom. You know, you may find there's predictors of assignment success. It may well be that I don't know, that people who are slow in applying for their visas or bank accounts or whatever they need to do, that might be an indication that the assignment might not be working. It may well be because their heart's not in it. It might be other reasons. But if you can start analyzing that data, you might actually be able to say to your assignees, and this gets quite sort of scary, I suppose, you might be able to say to your assignees that actually your assignment may not be a success from the data we're seeing, or better still, you might be able to say to them, please do this, that, and the other, and we think it will enhance your success. Going the other way, of course, one of the problems every company faces are the numerous numbers of assignees who quit within, say, 18 months of returning. Now, it might well be that we can find out ways of predicting. There might be things in your company, for example, let us say those employees who take home leave and actually go to home rather than go to a third country are more likely to reintegrate successfully when they come back. Or you might find that, I'm trying to think of another example, those employees who get a promotion whilst on assignment are more likely, or indeed less likely, to quit within 18 months of coming back. But once we can collect all that data, we can do a lot of prediction about the future. And that's where, you know, the whole big data thing is going to be massive. Let me just pull up some of the comments, because I can see loads of comments coming up. So I'll quickly try and read through some of these. Here, just pulling them up. It'll probably depend on the country and create rankings of countries to understand reliable data versus need of local provider. And that's, sorry, I need to go back on one. That was Giovanni saying, I wonder if big data will replace reliable, locally based service partners with skilled on the ground relocation who accompany mobile talent of clients. And my answer to that, Giovanni, is I think both have got a role, but in the same way that, you know, the Amazon type thing, yes, you can still get recommendations from friends as to what's a good movie to watch on Amazon Prime or Netflix, but you'll get many more as well that aren't, if you like, necessarily in your own bubble, if you're looking at what's coming in through the data. I mean, so I don't think this is an either and or. I think this is an and conversation. And from Mark O'Reilly, you can also use mobility data and performance data to manage succession planning. And I think that's absolutely right, you know, in terms of who's going to take over both on an assignment, but maybe even actually within the mobility function itself. Other comments we've got coming in from Jennifer. In short-term travel, we can use data to determine who in our qualified employee population already has work permission based on nationality or visa status to attend an emergency. I mean, I think Nitsa, if you want to come in on that, but I think emergency planning, where clearly by very definition, speed is important. I think there's another huge area where big data can help mitigate the risk of failure.
Yes, and help us identify real time. And, you know, we'll look in a few minutes that this is not just the future we're talking about. We already in Benivo, we are putting data into place, into work every day in how we manage Benivo, but also in the solutions that we build to our clients. So we'll be able to see some of these examples in live reports and dashboards that are available today, right? Because we don't like just to take about theory and what could have happened. That's actually things that we are already today seeing.
And here's a great question from Petra that I'll just bring in, and then we'll move on in a bit. She says, what in your opinion is the minimum amount of assignment volumes to get realistic predictive data? Great question.
Yeah, so going back to my education as an engineer in statistics, the magic number is 30, right? When n is larger than 30, then that's the data that starts to behave as a normal distribution. So the reality, it does not need to be so many assignees. Obviously, with more people, the accuracy will go up. But to start and using data, we don't need a lot. And especially when we think about the fact that relocation doesn't only involve people on assignments, it's also the self-initiated moves, the new hires, the people in the visa that are switching visa, but they are already here. And one of the benefits that we can do is because we see data across clients, we help often be able to apply that to a corporate and help them even if they have smaller data sets.
Okay, and a great comment coming in from Lisa Johnson here from Crown. She says, predictors of success are tricky and could be risky. Many times variables outside of the assignee or the family control the impact, positively or negatively, of adaptation and assignment success. Also, non-traditional assignees might be left out. I think the point here, Lisa, is that big data isn't the solution, it's part of the solution. And you use it to inform the decision you make. And absolutely, it can be risky, but hopefully it's less risky than having no data. It helps inform the decision. So Nitzan, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I agree, right? Whenever we talk about risk, we should also assess the risk of not doing something. And how risky is it if we are not even trying to predict the likelihood of something to happen and to prepare and to take actions in real time? That's, to me, is much riskier than the risk of us engaging. And of course, right, data is helping humans to make decisions, to take actions. It's not replacing, it's just helping us be much more productive and get into areas that otherwise we will not be able to cover. At the end of the day, in order to make an assignment a success, data will not make an assignment a success, but actions we are going to take based on data will help us.
Okay, I mean, these are all great comments. We're getting loads and loads of comments in from the audience, and that's really helpful. Please keep those comments coming. The more the merrier. We'll try and get back some, but I know you'll want to see some specific reports. So Nitzan, if I just move you along a bit, and maybe we can just sort of dive into the next area that you want to cover, and maybe start looking at some reports so people can see the power.
Let's switch to the demo and look into the platform. All right, so we are now looking at the Benivo platform. If anyone here is seeing it for the first time, then this is what we call the employee view. I'm going to switch in a moment out of that view, but I just wanted to highlight that that's where some of the magic happens. And this has the three areas that Brian talked about, right? So the actions, the end-to-end mobility experience, the digital destination, providing the Amazon-like experience to cover all the area of destination support, and money delivery. Let's have a quick look into the actions, and we look into that immigration example that we talked about before. So let's imagine that as an employee, I'm now waiting to see what's the status of my visa application. The first thing that we are creating for the employee is expectation management around data. We show to them, remember, like we, when you order food delivery on Uber Eats or Deliveroo or Pizza Domino's, whatever you used to order, you can see what are the next steps, right? Where is your order at any time? We created the same experience for anything that is relocation. We're looking at immigration, but that's not the area. Anything, tax, shipping, everything. I can see that. What are the different steps? How long should it take? So I can also predict what actions should I take at every step, and help me as the employee understand where I am here in terms of expectation management. But
so this is in the category of real-time insights. This is telling me what's going on now.
Exactly. And now I'm going to switch into seeing how it's going to work from the mobility platform. So I'm going into what we call is the client hub, the platform that the mobility manager is not going to use. That's no longer the platform for the employees. And here I'll be able to deep dive into reports that will help me. So let's stay for a second with that immigration example and see what we can learn based on the aggregated data across my population. So I can see here before, if you remember, there were 6 steps. So here are each of the steps: contacting, awaiting information, sending, etc. I can see how long on average does each step take, right? And when we talked about the past, I can start and I can see the total. The total is 50 days. So now I can start and analyze it. And let's say I'm going to look by host country of Brazil, and I can see what is the specific data for Brazil and deep dive into that, identify the roadblocks, and how can I do process improvement based on things that happened in the past.
I mean, I've seen this before, Nitz, and I'm going, wow, this is so powerful. This is information that people don't have at the moment. And I mean, you just look at it and immediately you can see the powers, because what you're saying is you can actually work out where the log jams are in your process, which in turn means you can start doing something about it.
Exactly. And when we move to the present, so what things I can actually action now, I can see here each employee, how long their process take. And then I can see what's going on with my delayed application. So for the 6 stages before we defined an SLA. When do I want a service level agreement? When do I want to get an alert when something goes wrong? And I can see here 3 employees are in step 3 for longer than 10 days. So I can now change it. I can now click on it. I can see who are these employees. I can engage with them or with the vendor, make sure that we resolve the issue here at real time. So we are not just waiting for the once a year report that we are getting from our vendor in terms of how did the vendor deliver to us. We can actually be proactive to identify where are the issues and solve them in real time. So another level of drill down, I can see on every employee here, what are the states? Immediately I can see, this employee is in red, it's taking longer. I can see it's the stage of contacting, that's the employee that takes longest. I can start and make an action to impact that. So that's just closing that example of the immigration, of course, applicable to any other areas. Let's look at a few other areas where we can benefit from data to find out. So one of the areas that we saw immediately an opportunity to impact with data when the pandemic started back in March was the fact that mobility managers were spending a lot of time to find out where are their employees. And what we were able is to develop an interactive tool that tells me at any given time, where are my employees located, right? So I can see employees of a specific office.
Okay, this is amazing. So this is letting any mobility manager know where are their employees, and presumably they can cut that data any way they want. But so you've got this information that just tells you immediately where is everybody, and
Exactly.
how are we getting that data? Just share that with the audience.
Yeah, it's all based on what's called IP, the Internet Protocol. So where is someone logged into the Benivo platform or received an email? So it's possible to send a push notification to kind of in a crisis of a earthquake or anything that to get an update. And of course, everything is following data privacy regulation. So that's one area. Let's look about other areas where we can find out more. So talking about being able to action on the data, I can see here employees that their assignment date is approaching, employees that their visa is about to expire in the next 90 days, or that their passport is expiring. I can see 5 employees have a tax return which is overdue. Again, I can drill down, get the specifics, and make decisions that will obviously save money for my company and make me more strategic, because I don't need to review everything. That's the beauty of data. Using data correctly can help us only handle the exceptions, what doesn't work according to the system, and making sure we spend our time on solving those problems rather than doing the admin work of just keeping things as they are.
You made a great point there. We'll come on with this in a moment, but you said it gives you strategic insights. And I think one of the points that came out of the conversation yesterday I had with Wes is that, and in fact, it's come out on many of the View from the Tops I've done over the past, couple of years now, is mobility people always want to have a seat at the top table. They always say, how do we get a seat at the top? That has been the discussion, the debate that I've heard for probably most of my career. And the answer that was coming back in all the sessions is you get a seat at the table if you can provide strategic insights. If all you're doing is a compliance job and just moving people from A to B, you will never get a seat at the top of the table. But if on the other hand, you can turn around to the CEO, the CFO, the CHRO and say, if you do this, that, or the other, you can do things more efficiently, you can save money, you can enhance employee experience, you can enhance return on investment. But whatever it is, if you can provide strategic insights, then you've got something really powerful that gives you that seat at the high table. And if you're just working on a hunch and you go to your C-suite boss and say, oh, I think we can do this, the first question they're going to come back with, or the first point they're going to make, is they're going to say, prove it. Don't just work on assumption, prove it. And what data does is it gives you the proof. And obviously we had the conversation earlier about you've got to use intelligence about how you use that data, which is maybe the difference between data and smart data. But take that data, use the predictions. This can transform not just the mobility experience, but it can actually help transform the mobility function by giving them the strategic insights, which in turn will allow them to knock on the door and demand a seat at the top table. So Nitzan, I sort of ran across you there, but do you want to carry on with your examples?
Exactly the points that we are trying to convey. This is being more strategic is in our hands, right? We don't need to wait for someone to tell us to be more strategic. We need to be proactive here. We need to come up with the agenda. We need to make sure that we free up our admin work so we can actually add additional value. Now, more important than ever.
And a couple of comments that just came in on that from Giovanni. The employee location section, which we were showing a moment ago, is this showing where they are logged in with their computers, or does this track their current location via their mobile phone?
Yeah, so it works both on mobile phone and on logged in from computer. This example that I show is an example that is based on the last known location. We can also look into solutions that are installed on the phone, right? So GPS tracking, I guess that's what you're referring to. So getting the data from both of them, obviously it's possible. The example I showed before is based on IP, Internet Protocol, and that is tracked on both mobile and computer devices.
And one other question that just came in, which is a very specific one, from Mark O'Reilly for you, Nitzan. What are the most complex APIs you've had to undertake, anonymous if necessary, to integrate the data successfully? We manage them all, Mark. It's not a problem, but Nitzan.
Yeah, this show is live, it's recorded. There are quite a few people online. Let's talk about that, Mark, on a beer, and then we can discuss. We had some challenges.
Complex or easy?
Yeah, I will not say that it was an easy task, but now that we are there, we can definitely see that it was well worth the investment. Let's look about one of the areas that really create a wow employee experience, which is when we are able to engage with the employees from a point of view where we actually know what's going on, right? So a lot of time, the frustration that employees have with their traditional relocation solutions is that every time they need to start from the beginning and explain what's going on, what the status, what they have done since the last update call. Instead, we are putting the consultants, the RMC, or the mobility team in the driver's seat to be able to see what the employees have done, right? So let's look first on a population level. I can see what percentage of my employees are on track with a list of defined actions, what percentage of them are delayed. I can see who is actually delayed. I can drill down into a list of key actions that I would like the employees to take, and they are available obviously on the employee platform we saw before. And I can see the status, whether it was completed, it's in progress, or they haven't started that. And I can immediately identify if there are areas such as opening a bank account. I can see, quite a few people didn't start that. I know it's important. I can drill down into that population. And I can even go into a specific employee level, right? So it doesn't have to stay on high level. It can be as specific as a consultant. Before I pick up the phone and I call an employee, I can actually see, this employee, Matthew, already completed everything, right? He's at 100% completion. I should not go and just call them and say, how are you doing with that? If I am to spend any time on a call with them, it needs to be about the next step. It needs to be some value add. So again, removing the admin work by using data allows to be much more strategic in the relationship that we are building with people. I'm going to remove the filter that shows only Matthew data. And now I can see across my population, what is actually the completion rate of the key actions. And 3 employees are not engaged. And I can immediately see who are these employees who are not engaged. And out of the actions they need to complete, what is the progress that each of these employees is making?
And those are the ones where likely it will be an assignment failure if they haven't engaged in due course, because there's going to be a panic at some point. It's not going to work well. So being able to deal with these at this point hopefully will enhance the chance of assignment success and therefore success with the business line.
Exactly. One of our clients shared with us that they had a challenge that just as the pandemic started, they were back in February, they needed to get 8 people into Hong Kong to a project. And they initiated everything and they stayed and wait. And 2 weeks after, the program manager is calling and saying, where are my people? And say, we don't know. We thought they left. Apparently, they didn't want to go to Hong Kong, but there was no way to know that they are not doing anything. They did not apply to the visa. They did not submit documents. They did not arrange the flights. And the mobility team just had no visibility. And that's something we are able now to completely transform, right? And the impact, again, on the business is from becoming just a call center admin to a proactive entity that drives into achieving the business goals. And everything is just showing here is always, of course, available to an export, to a spreadsheet. I know a lot of us right on this call, we love our spreadsheet. We want to control the data. So yes, everything can be exported and handled in that way. Let's look at another section. We were talking about employee experience, and there was a question about the difference between knowledge of data by locals. And one of the things that make Benivo different is the fact that we help people make decisions based on other people's experiences, right? Based on the decisions that were taken by others. That's how we make our decision every day, right? When we buy something online, we look at the reviews, we look at the star rating. When we book a hotel, we don't check if it's 3 stars or 4 stars. We say what other people said about that.
We get a TripAdvisor.
Exactly. We put the same experience into mobility, and that's helping employee. I'm not going to get into that. We spend a few other sessions on that, and I'm sure we'll spend future sessions on that. But today I want to show how these insights actually also transform the work of the mobility team. So here I can just, if I'm interested to see where I'm collecting insight, I can see here the breakdown of insights that were shared by employees. And then next I can go and, for example, I want to look at banking, and I'm going to look at the UK, and I'm going to use here, obviously, not showing here the data of a real client, but give a real example that we had with a client that shared with us that they have a preferred bank and they want that bank to be promoted on the platform and get people to use it, etc. And of course, we are able to customize and do that. And but then we were able to show them this report. And what they've learned from this report is actually the employees are not open a bank account with their preferred bank account because the process is just hard. And there is another bank where everyone is going to, and it's much easier to. And they realized that as a mobility team, they were choosing the wrong partners, the wrong policy, the wrong benefits for their employees, because that was not getting utilization. That really opened up their mind. and their eyes about how to manage their time and which vendors to engage with. So here I can see which banks are popular with a specific population or anything else, and what my employees actually doing. I can do the same about which mobile plan, which shipping provider they choose. Anything that will help me better manage my core flex program, my lump sum program. I can get into what employees are spending on, what are the benefits that they would like to get, and really take employee experience into a completely different level.
I remember Nitzan, actually, I had a conversation. I think I know, obviously, I won't say the client you're talking about. I remember having a conversation with him. And one of the points that he said to me is that when he appointed Benivo, he thought social insights and that crowdsourced information sounded a nice to have. But that was it. He thought it was a nice to have. And now what he says is he couldn't live without it, because it's not only enhancing the employee experience, but the information he is getting is informing so many decisions he is making that he just doesn't know how he ever managed without it.
Yeah, it's just amazing to hear and rewarding for all the work, right, that Mark asked about. Let's look about another view here. One of the areas that are really important for us at Benivo is social responsibility. As part of the Benivo experience, employees receive a gift from the employer that we deliver to them, and they can choose which gift, but they also choose a charity that they would like to support. And the more insights they share, the larger the contribution is that we are making toward that charity. So one of the things that corporates really like to see is what actually are employees engaging with. And we can see here immediately, these are the areas where they would like to contribute more. Not surprisingly, health services is the most popular now, and hunger looks like the least one. But then we can even see what we have done together as a community. So all of us, the employees who relocated for Stark Industries as the demo company, we've donated 479 medical days. We've cleaned 3,000 kilograms of plastic from the oceans, etc., etc. I can see. And that's what that creates is, yes, it's a feel good for the mobility team, obviously, but what it creates even more is for the employees, it gives the feeling that they are part of a community, and that community is bigger and doing something bigger together. And today, with the world of large corporate, to be able to create that experience is something that we see as very rewarding. Other areas that I can see here, for example, which gifts are selected. And you can imagine this, I'm not going to get into all of these reports, but on a core flex benefit, I can see which benefits are the most popular. So I can predict based on that when employees join, which benefits are they are likely to select. We can revise the benefit packages based on what employees want. And the other thing that we bring into big data is also the frequency of feedback collection. Often when we meet with mobility leaders, they tell us in the last annual survey, we've learned X, Y, and Z. And they ask me, what do you do in the annual survey? And we're like, we don't have an annual survey. We do pulse survey all the time, giving people the opportunity to share the data, and the data comes live. So I can just go on here and see what employees say at any given time. And that means that this feedback is not only more relevant, it's also actionable. I can actually still fix the experience if it's broken, because it's not 6 months after they move. It was reported yesterday. So I can still go ahead and take an action and improve that for that specific person. I can see what do they say, what worked for them, what didn't, and again, be much more proactive than just wait for that annual once a year survey that is just too late now to make changes on people that are currently in the process.
You've touched on a great point here, because I was talking on the show yesterday, and I think it was Michelle, who used to be at Teva Pharmaceuticals, was making the point that back in the day, the only data she would get would be the data provided to her by her RMC. And the RMC data would always say that it was whatever 95%, 97%, and that's the data that I think most corporates tend to receive. But when she wanted to drill down into the data, it was hard to do that because she couldn't access it. But also, she'd have to wait for I can't remember whether it was 6 monthly or quarterly or annually. I can't remember, but she'd have to wait for that particular meeting to get the feedback. Whereas with this and with big data, you get the feedback immediately, any moment in time. If you want to get feedback, you just get it automatically. You as the corporate are in control of the data, and you can then cut it and dice it and slice it whichever way you want to get down to the level of granularity that you really need. So big data is not just providing greater insights, it's providing faster insights as well.
Yeah, and that's make it present, right? It's instead of only in the past, it's making in the present. We can still action, we can still fix that experience and make the what will be the predictive analytics, shape our own future, shape the future experience of that individual. Another area where we've seen very interesting use of big data is on the lump sum experience, where when we distribute the lump sum, we are able through AI to do that extremely fast and also to monitor much more in details how the funds are being spent. And we've one of the corporate who is engaging with us, what they wanted to see is actually which specific merchant are the employees using, right? So merchant vendors, so I'm using the term from credit card processing, which vendors are the employees selecting that maybe are outside the list of vendor providers, and then to see how can we either onboard them and get better deals for our employees, or we can communicate to other employees so they know that this is a recommended vendor or not. And we're going to spend a lot of time on core flex and on lump sum on the next 2 sessions, but just a teaser of how big data is also helping to shape and improve the experience there.
Okay, I mean that's great. I mean, we will get on. As I said, the next session is going to be all about core flex, the next generation. Let me just feed in a comment. I think we've got a few minutes left, but I'll just pick in a comment here, and it's come from Priyamvada. Just trying to get up on screen, and here we go. Priyamvada said, sorry, perhaps you already covered this, but at what point are you collecting this data? For example, what is most important to them from the employees? Is it pre-departure? When are we collecting the data? I know the answer, but I'll let you answer it, Nitzan.
I'm guessing that's the insights that the employees are sharing. Because we collect data all the time from everywhere we can, right? So we build APIs and we build a platform for the other vendors where they can update the status of delivery every minute, and we just use that as another source of data. We use data that is based on what the employees are doing on the platform. So if I'll switch quickly from the platform now of the mobility manager to the platform of the employee, as they engage with the platform, we collect data there on every actions they complete, when they open a bank account, etc. There is a whole section where we gamified the mobility experience. I'll show that quickly. It's called Insights. And here we just ask very, very quick and easy questions to employees. They get rewards for answering more, and they can share their experience and see how they benchmark to their colleagues. So for example, which booking engine do you use to booking flights? Obviously I'll choose Expedia. And I can see, and that updates now the data. If I choose which bank I bank with, again, all of those, I can make my decision and I can see how I benchmark to my colleagues, what they've selected, as well as help in another way to collect insight. But a range of ways we have to collect data that's really in the core of how we deliver.
And just a shout out, Emily made the point, identifying where the employees are will be key, especially now that virtual assignments are more popular. And just to say, that's exactly what our platform does. It does help you do it. And I saw, I've got to put this one up, Giovanni, my good friend, said, the company SafeTrue is offering such a solution or app. I'm testing it and it's great. Just to reassure everybody, that's exactly what we're offering too. And our version is free because it's just part of the normal Benivo experiences. You get all the things we're talking about, all these data analytics that we're offering, all this where are you, all this predictive stuff, all that stuff is included in the standard package. So there's no extra cost involved. If you're interested in testing it, then obviously we would prefer that you use us. So Nitzan, anyway, back to you, I think.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of what we wanted to show in terms of data. Obviously, we are happy to spend a lot more time with specific companies where they want to answer specific questions by data. We are able to very easily customize, create any report in any format, whether it's for payroll or for another team or a dashboard. All of that is happening really in days, not in weeks, not in months. That's because of the flexibility of the tool we've built. So I think that's kind of wrapping up on big data. Okay, well, thank you, Nitzan. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed it. We are back in 2 weeks' time, and we're going to be covering, I think, a subject that everybody is fascinated on, which is Core Flex, but we've called it Core Flex, the next generation, because we're going to be talking about not just what can be done with Core Flex, but where it's going. So all that remains is for me to thank everybody. There's been so many of you online today. I hope you've really enjoyed it. We're back in 2 weeks' time, and then, of course, we're back next week with the view from the top too. And there we've got two great corporate mobility professionals. We've got Charles Armino from Intuit and Melissa Knight from Terra. So we're looking forward to both those on the view from the top next week. This has been Brian Friedman and Nitzan Udan from Benivo with Benivo Bites. We hope you've enjoyed the show, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.